Hello and welcome to a new tutorial. Thank you for stopping by again. Thank you to my existing subscribers. Thank you so much. And if this is your first time checking out any of my videos, you're highly welcome. Please subscribe if you're yet to subscribe, and also click on the notification bell so that you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. And also do not forget to give this video a thumbs up. Today's tutorial is on how to make a simple short gown with plackets in front. So let's get into the video. I folded my fabric into four. I'm cutting the front and the back together. I folded according to quarter of the hip circumference I'm working with and according to the length of the gown. The length of the gown is 37 inches. So from the start line to 9 inches is the chest line. I have 17 as the waistline and 25 as the hip line, and then the length of the gown plus extra 1.5 inches for hemming. So I would go ahead and draw out the shoulder slope using the 3-inch 8 inches standard. So at the 8 inches point I came down by 1 inch, and also on the start line I imputed half of my shoulder measurement, which is 8.5 inches, and I also imputed 8.5 inches on the chest line, and I'll connect the point on the start line, which is the shoulder line, down to the chest line. On the chest line, I'll impute quarter of the bust measurement I'm working with plus extra 1 inch for ease and 1 inch sewing allowance. Then on the waistline, I'll bring down the measurement I have on the chest line on the waistline. And on the hip line, I will impute quarter of the hip circumference plus 1 inch for ease and 1 inch sewing allowance. So I'm connecting from the chest line to the waistline, the measurement I have there, and then from the waistline down to the hip line. Then for the hem of the gown, I'm going to measure what I have, the measurement I have on the hip line. I'm going to bring down that exact measurement to the hem line and then connect using a straight rule. I would connect from the hip down to the hem line. Then for the armhole curve, I'm going to measure what I have from the shoulder slope down to the chest line. I'll divide that into 2 and find the center, and from that center I'm going to connect using an armhole curve to the chest line, and this will be for the back armhole. And for the front armhole, I'm going to come in from that center point by 1/2 inch and connect back to the chest line and then up to the shoulder slope line, and that is for the front armhole. I will also add sewing allowance for joining the two shoulders, the front shoulder and the back. I'm adding 1/2 inch joining allowance on the shoulder as well. So for the neckline, I'm using a neck width of 3 inches and a neck depth of 3 inches for the front neckline, and for the back neckline I'm using the same width as what I have in front, 3 inches, and then for the depth I'm using 1 inch depth for the back. So I'm making the curve for both the front neckline and the back neckline. So please take note that there is no zipper allowance for this gown. I will not be adding a zipper to the gown. So I'll go ahead and recheck my measurements and then cut out the gown. So as I was cutting, I decided to shape the waist a bit. So on the waistline, I'm going to come in, because what I have on the waist and on the chest line is the same thing. So I'm going to come in on the waistline by 1/2 inch, and from that 1/2 inch, I'll connect back to the chest line, and then using a curved part of the ruler, I'll connect back to the hip line just to give it a bit of shape at the waistline. So I'll go ahead and cut out this new line I just made and continue my cutting. So for the armhole, I'll cut out the back armhole first, as you can see, and also for the neckline, I'll cut out the back neckline first. I'll cut that out first, then I would separate the front from the back and then cut out the neckline for the front and also cut out the armhole for the front. So I won't cut them together. For the armhole, I'll fold in the the back part to enable me cut out only the armhole for the front. The place I came in is just for the front, so I'm cutting that out as well, and I'm done with cutting the gown. I also went ahead to cut out a basic sleeve for this gown. If you don't know how to cut a basic sleeve, I'll drop a link in the description box on how to do that. So for the placket, let's get into making the placket. So for the neckline, I decided to come down further again for the neck depth in front by half an inch. So making my neckline 3 inches by 3.5 inches for the front neckline. So that is at the center front is where I'm going to attach the placket. So for the placket, I've cut a piece of fabric, and I have a length of 10 inches and a width of 6 inches. So I'm going to iron it into 2 equal parts. So on fold I have 3 inches. When it's fold equally, I have 3 inches, and I've also ironed gum stay to this piece of fabric. So from the crease point, you can see where I have a crease. I've measured half inch on either side of the crease, and for the length I want, I've measured 6 inches, and I've used a pen to mark out this half inch on either side of the crease, and the lower part, the 6 inches line. So I'm going to sew this now to the front fabric. So this is the back side, the wrong side of the front part of this gown. So I've also ironed the gown on fold, the front part on fold, so there is also a crease at the center front of this of the gown. So I'm going to sew right side of the placket material to the wrong side of the gown. So I'm going to sew on the line. You're seeing the line I made, the half inches point. I'm going to sew all round. So I'll go ahead and use a pin to hold down this piece of fabric on the main fabric. So I've held it down. I'm going to sew. You can see my hand how I'm pointing out with a pen. I'm going to sew on this line all through. So I'll sew that and come back and show you what I have. So I've made the stitches, I've removed my pin. So what I'm going to do now will be to cut on the crease point, on that crease you're seeing where I'm cutting from. I'm going to cut all through to the point before where the seam ends. I'm not going to cut through the seam, so I'm going to cut the edges on either side. I'm going to notch the edges to enable me flip this piece of fabric, the smaller piece of fabric, to the front side of the gown. So I've notched, as you can see. So I'm going to flip it over to the right side. Flipped it to the right side, as you can see. Okay, and I've ironed in half inch. I've ironed in half inch on either side of the slits for the plackets. You can see where I measured half inch all through, and I ironed those parts in. Okay, so on one side, what I'm going to do, if I check what I have now is 2 inches remaining. Remember, I used half inch to sew the other time before I cut, and I folded in half inch and ironed. So these 2 inches, I'm going to fold it. You can see as I'm demonstrating, I'm going to fold and sew on the line I have. On the line I have, when I made the first stitch, that's half inch I measured out and made a stitch. I'm going to sew on this line. I would fold, as you see me do, I'll fold into 2 and then sew on it on the right side. I'll also do the same thing on the left side. What I do to the right side of the placket, I'm going to do to the wrong side of the placket. I've also ironed in half inch in, and I'm going to fold what I have remaining into 2 and then sew on that line, the first line I made before slitting open. So I'm going to sew. I'm going to sew on it as you see me demonstrate. I'll do that for the right side. I'll also do the same thing for the left side. So I've gone ahead to sew them as I explained. I've sewn the right side and the left side, and this is what it looks like. So as you can see, it's overlapping, the placket is overlapping, so I'll decide which side I want to overlap which. So I've decided to make the right overlap the left side. So, and the lower part, I'm going to fold it, the lower part of the placket, and as you can see, it's too bulky. I'm going to cut out the part that will be underneath. So I'm slitting this part into 2. Since I'm just going to fold it in, this will just be getting in the way if it's bulky, and it will make it not to look neat. So I'm going to cut out the part that will be under, the part that is being overlapped. I'm going to cut out what I have, the excess I have after the 6 inches. You can see as I'm cutting it out. So it is not needed. I'm going to cut it out. I'll go ahead and cut out this part, as you can see. Okay, so to enable me fold this one easily. So, and for the placket length, remember when I cut, the length of the fabric was 10 inches, but I do not need all that 10 inches. I want the length of the placket to be 7.5 inches. So I'll go ahead and reduce the length. I'm going to measure out 2 inches and cut out the remaining after the 2 inches. So I'm cutting this out. I do not need it. I measured 2 inches because I actually need 1.5 inches. I would fold in 1/2 inch, and then what I will have remaining will be 1.5 inches. So that's why I measured out the 2 inches. So I'm going to fold in as you can see me demonstrate. I'll fold in that 1/2 inch. When I fold it in, I'm going to iron properly. So I'll iron this down properly. Please just take note that all the places I folded, I ironed it properly. I have to iron to make it stay in place and make it look neat. So I'm going to iron this down, and then after ironing it properly, I'm going to sew, starting from the where I stopped for the 6 inches. I'll sew as I'm demonstrating down to the other 6 inches, and then sew across that point. You can see how I'm demonstrating. So I'm going to go to the sewing machine and sew just like that. So after doing that, I will join the front and the back by the shoulder. I will join the sides and attach the sleeves, and then I'm going to pipe the neckline using bias. I'll cut on bias and then pipe the neckline. So this is it. I've sewn down how I just said, and you can see what it looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and couple everything and show you what the top looks like. So I've joined everything. Okay, you can see I've joined the sleeves, I've joined the sides. I also cut my fabric on bias and used that to pipe the neckline. That is what I did. Thank you guys for watching, and this is it on how you can add a placket to your top, to your shirt, or to your gown. Thank you for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you're yet to subscribe, and also click on the notification bell so that you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. Share this video with your friends, and see you in my next video. Bye.